In today's show, Blake Wesley gets the Blazers' 15th roster spot and the numbers behind young Hansen's Summer League performance and why it might be better than you even think. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same as Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, the Blazers have signed Blake Wesley to their 15th and final roster spot. This thing is full and complete, plus some sticky stats you need to know from Summer League, because young Hansen might have even been better than you appreciate. And then we'll talk a little bit about restricted free agency and the mess it's been this summer and what that might mean for Shaedon Sharpe in the future. Let's get into it. Starting with Blake Wesley, the news of the day. We were going to do something different today. That show's going to be tomorrow. But there's some news today, so we move stuff around. The Blazers, as first reported by ESPN, have agreed to a one-year deal with Blake Wesley, who spent the first 3 seasons of his NBA career with the San Antonio Spurs, a 6'3" combo guard who spent a season at Notre Dame before coming out early. A second-team All-ACC performer, goes pro, 25th pick in the draft by the Spurs in 2022, and spends his first 3 seasons in San Antonio and just never really got it going. Career averages of 4.3 points, 2.4 assists, and 1.5 rebounds, averaging about 14.3 minutes per game across 156 games over his first 3 seasons, including just 4 starts. So, this is a 15th roster spot guy. He's not supposed to pop. This isn't like these numbers, he only averaged 4, 2, and 1. Yeah, that's why he was available as a free agent at the end of July, right? I think if you're listening to the podcast, that's why you should listen to the show. You kind of knew this flavor of move was coming. Clearly, the Blazers needed one more guard. You just look at their roster. They need one more dude who, if things go wrong, can dribble, even after signing Damian Lillard, forgot his name for a moment. Damian Lillard, who's not going to play this season, they still obviously needed a guard. The roster is now full with 15 NBA contracts, because Dame counts as an NBA contract, making $14 million to not play this year. 14 million contracts, 15 guaranteed contracts. Wesley is sort of the insurance deep bench guard. They do have one two-way spot remaining that they can figure out what they want to do with that, but that's something you can address in training camp, and because of the nature of two-way contracts, you can kind of churn through it until you find the type of depth or the type of sort of flyer you want. But Wesley joins the Blazers via the free agency because he was bought out by the Washington Wizards. So the Spurs this summer traded Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley to the Wizards for Kelly Olynyk and a second-round pick. And then the Wizards, who had a relatively crowded roster, had to make some decisions and reached a buyout with a couple different people. And the notable buyout that you recall is Marcus Smart, who eventually signed with the Los Angeles Lakers. And people pretended that Marcus Smart regularly plays basketball despite his last 5 years in the NBA. But Malachi Branham also reached a buyout with the Wizards. And, at the time, this didn't pique my personal, make my personal antenna peak up, but he gave back some money. According to Keith Smith of Spot Track, Blake Wesley gave back $1.4 million in his buyout with the Wizards, basically buying his own free agency back. But a player of his status and caliber is very unlikely to give back $1.5 million just to reach free agency unless he knows he's got a landing spot. Blake Wesley reached a buyout with the Wizards on July 19th. On July 22nd, he's a Portland Trailblazer. He had a landing spot. This makes sense. This is, a 22-year-old former first-round pick. It's what people sometimes call a second draft guy. Didn't work out in his first spot. It was, a drafted guy, a first-round draft pick. Didn't work out in his first spot. The team that he landed on a trade, just we're not going to cut him. We're not going to play him. We're just going to cut him. And then you end up kind of he's free in the open market. I'm certain it's a minimum deal. Here's how I know it's a minimum deal. When a player signs for more than the minimum, the news breakers and news brokers put it in their tweets. They put it in their social media posts. They say he signed for this much money and this many years, and they always like whatever the most amount of money you could possibly earn. That's the number that you get. So like if it's a 3-year deal for $40 million, but the last 2 years are non-guaranteed, you get 3 for 40, baby. Call it the Duncan Robinson, Zach Collins rule. But like, yeah, it's Blake Wesley didn't get a number attached to his name. He got a 1-year fully guaranteed contract from Michael Scotto. 1-year contract from Scotto. And when it's 1-year contract, when they don't give you the number, pretty safe bet that it is the minimum, because that is how the news brokering world works. That's just a little tip for you as you're moving along. Who is Blake Wesley? Like I said, 6'3" combo guard. He's a really speedy athlete. I read a couple profiles of him. I've watched him. Like I remember he played in the ACC, played against his collegiate season was the year that the University of North Carolina Tar Heels ended up being the national runner-up with Caleb Love. So he played against my beloved Tar Heels. I remember him in college just as a player. He's second team all ACC. I don't have strong memories of watching him play with the Spurs. I'm sure I've seen him, but I can't recall. So I read some scouting reports, including a really good post from Sherlock-Spreadsheet on the Spurs subreddit on Reddit, and Jacob Douglas on Pounding the Rock also had a season profile, and those are the sort of the places that I went to say, hey, these people watch them closely, and to credit where it's due on sort of how I got my quick scouting report on him. Wesley is a speedy athlete whose best skills are on defense. The question is, can he score? He had a 2.3 steal percentage last year, or 2.3% steal percentage last year. That ranked in the 83rd percentile for combo guards, according to Clean the Glass. That's a good number. That's like oh, you're a disruptive defender type of thing. His passing numbers per 36, just looking at his numbers, suggest that he's a pretty good playmaker. I hate Basketball Reference's positional breakdown. I think it's just nonsense. I do not think they know how positions work on Basketball Reference. They say he played a lot of point guard. Sure. I think what it means is he could play a little bit based on his passing per 36 numbers and the absolute nonsense from Basketball Reference. I'm going to suggest that he can play a little bit of point guard, and that's exactly what the Blazers needed. They needed an emergency dude who can dribble. And that's what Blake Wesley is. He's an emergency dude who can dribble. Despite having pretty good, 6 assists per 36, nobody who I read scouting reports of, neither on Reddit or on Pounding the Rock, which is the SB Nation blog for the Spurs, neither writer made mention of Wesley as much of a meaningful passer. The defense is where he will set himself apart. 52% of his shots last year were inside 4 feet, according to Clean the Glass, but he shot just 57% inside 4 feet. That's the 31st percentile among combo guards. He's a dude who is a career 29.7 3-point shooter, low volume and low accuracy. He's taken 165 threes in 156 games. Doesn't take many, doesn't make many. Most of his shots come at the rim, and he is for his position and size, a very bad finisher at the rim. This is a dude who has not figured out what he can do and what he's capable of, and maybe what he's capable of is not much on offense. But I feel like this fits the Blazers' sort of MO, right? He is a young player with upside. He's measured with a 6'9" wingspan at the NBA draft combine, despite being under 6'4" barefoot. I think he measured at the combine 6'4" in shoes, and the Blazers have him listed at 6'3". Bless them. That's brave of them to admit his actual height. But it is, he's a good athlete with long arms, who can defend, who has been much more effective as a chaos creator on defense and a transition player on offense, and has kind of a real question marks about how he can score and contribute in the half court. And boy, does that sound like who the Blazers have targeted over the last few seasons in terms of young upside swings. This is the type. Fits sort of their prototype. Like I said, for a 15th draft pick or for a 15th roster spot, I think this is fine. This is exactly the position they needed, just in terms of insurance and positional depth. If this works with Blake Wesley, awesome. If it doesn't work, it's a 1-year flyer on a 22-year-old. So be it. I don't expect we see very much of him at all, but those of you who are still holding on to the Caleb Love plays rotational minutes stream, it has ended because Blake Wesley is younger than Caleb Love and has played in 3 NBA seasons, and Caleb Love has played in a total of 0. That's Blake Wesley. That's who you need to know. The Blazers made it official, so it's they don't release contract info, but it's official. He's on the team. He's your 15th guy. He's really more like your 12th guy because Dame is the 15th and he's not going to play, and Robert Williams is a big question mark at 14. So this is Blake Wesley, 13th guy. I did the math wrong. Blake Wesley, 13th guy plus some question marks. Let's talk about sticky stats. What if I told you Young Hansen was better than you think, or at least has some indicators that suggest what you saw was real? Join me in that second segment. We'll talk about reality and Hansen. Before we do that, though, let's talk about FanDuel. It's summer sports. We got them. Baseball is rolling along. They're back playing baseball games. They got golf. Every green in America seeing golf balls drop on there, and a lot of bunkers as well. Plus, you got high stakes footy action here and abroad, and FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. So if you want to get into all those, you want to get into the WNBA, you want to get into whatever obscure sport you're into, you're going to find that action on FanDuel. You're already a sports nut. You're listening to this particular program. So with FanDuel, it's just another way to get in on something you're already watching. You can track your favorite matchups. You can find different fun daily promotions on the app with new ways to bet. Plus, you can build a live same-game parlay, so if you miss the beginning of whatever you're watching, you can still get in on creative parlays. Or you can just watch a bet right out to the very end, just like the good old days. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right. So over at the F5, Owen Phillips wrote a post about summer league stats that you can trust. Owen Phillips writes the F5. It is like an analytics-focused basketball blog. It's great. It is deep dives into things with this sort of a statistical bent, and it has really good sort of data visuals that make it really easy and fun to read. It's very pretty. So what Phillips does, and Phillips is really good at exactly this type of thing. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe for free, or you can pay a little money and get all of the posts. But what Phillips wrote is like he put together a sort of a study to see which statistics in Summer League are sticky, which things do we watch in Vegas that actually translate to the regular season. And to find out, Phillips tracked 25 different stats across Summer League and the NBA for 485 different rookies since 2008. So basically, if you're watching a rookie in July, you watch him, you're getting your first impressions of them in July. What are the real things that you see that actually will show up when that player gets on the court during their rookie season? That is basically what this is an attempt to do. And a lot of this was using, or all of this was using per 36 numbers, like familiar box score stats, points, rebounds, assists, blocks, things like that. And then other sort of rate-based stuff, because those things are less sensitive to playing time. So like anybody who gets on the court, you can kind of track these things. And what Phillips found was basically the stickiest things are how you play. Not how well you play, but how you play. So 3-point attempt rate. That's the stickiest stat. And by sticky, I mean the strongest indicator, the thing that sticks from July to October or into your rookie season. 3-point attempt rate. If you bomb a bunch of threes, you're probably going to bomb a bunch of threes in the regular season. And I think importantly, if you do not bomb threes, 3-point attempt rate in both directions, if you do not bomb threes in Vegas, it is very unlikely that how you play, and like if you weren't someone who shot a bunch of threes in Summer League, according to this study, you are very unlikely to do that your rookie season. How you play is a pretty strong indicator. But other things are also fairly sticky as well. Assists per 36, blocks per 36, rebounds per 36 are all pretty sticky. And the least sticky stuff, the stuff that's just nonsense, right, is stuff you would expect to be nonsense if you just use your little lizard brain. 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, and very obviously plus minus. Plus minus is always is pretty meaningless in small samples anyways, but particularly in Vegas where it's like, oh yeah, like the Blazers really won Young Hansen's minutes. Well, look who came in behind him when he went to the bench. Did a single player who's going to play NBA minutes next season come in? No, they did not. No, they did not. So like, yeah, like the plus minus is obviously nonsense. 3-point percentage though, that's like, you just need to shoot a bunch of them. I think the sort of the guess from the analytics community, or the projection from the analytics community, is something like 750 attempts for 3-point percentage to normalize and stabilize and like be an indicator of something. You're probably not going to get to shoot 750 3-pointers during 4 or 5 games in Las Vegas. So you're never going to get that number. 2-point percentage, shot making really doesn't translate. It is not an indicator. Now, certainly some guys make shots and then they make shots as rookies, but in terms of what is like truly predictive, 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, meaningless, plus minus meaningless, but how you play, where you shoot from, 3-point attempt rate, assists per 36. Are you someone who throws passes? Do you try to set guys up? And block percentage. Are you blocks per 36? Are you attempting to block shots? And are you effective blocking shots? And like, do you put yourself in position to do so? How you play. Rebounds per 36 as well is a sticky stat, which brings me to the young king of Rip City. It's funny. It was funny to call Young Hansen the young king of Rip City when Damian Lillard is back. It was better hyperbole before Dame signed, but I still like it. He's got some strong indicators here. He's among the leaders in assists per 36 as a rookie at 5.5. We watched the dude throw dimes. We watched him throw passes that weren't assists, that were just really good passes, but he's just throwing to either like, guys who can't get shots off because some good passes don't obviously lead to shot attempts or even shot makes, and also just like he's throwing to summer league dudes. Not everybody hits everything, and so like it's a lower quality of teammate, obviously a lower quality of opponent as well. But in terms of just like if you make a good pass, you're probably less likely to be rewarded at that lower level. It is in general, broadly speaking, I believe as Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue like to say, it is a low assist environment. So just the fact that 5.5 per 36 for a 7-2 center, hello. That's meaningful. That looks like that is like the way you play. That is sticky. Do you think? I mean, you could just watch him and know, like, yeah, this dude's gonna dime people up when he plays in the NBA. But also, like the sort of statistical measurement here, the stat science behind this suggests yes, that is something that you can say typically translates. Blocks per 36. Hansen was at 3.3. That typically translates. I think there were some questions about his defense in terms of effectiveness. I know that people tend to think like shot blocking is the indicator of defense, and I did read Kevin Pelton say that that he thought that Hansen's rim protection was better than had been anticipated. I thought he would be fine as a shot blocker. I thought the sort of out on the perimeter, get stuck on an island stuff would be more troubling than his ability to protect the rim. But I guess he was not. While he was Defensive Player of the Year in China, the sort of projections of him was that he would not be that level of rim deter as he made this sort of transition to higher level competition. And he did 3.3 per 36, one of the better numbers in the league, or in summer league for rookies, a strong indicator. And his offensive rebounds, 1.5 per 36, suggests that's not really high among his peers, among his other fellow rookies, but that's like on the better side. That's an indicator. The blocks and the assists though, like that, if you are to believe Phillips's study here, and I do, because I think Owen Phillips is really smart, like it is these, you kind of knew this, like just with your brain, right? You could say like, yeah, I bet he's going to be a good passer and he's probably going to block shots because he's 7'1". But these, as opposed to like what is real, the phrase I had used going into Summer League is underreact, but know what you see. And by that, I mean, it's like, you got to figure out how guys are going to perform in context. It's like Caleb Love is not going to get to shoot 17 times in an NBA game. So it's like, that doesn't, like what he does with 17 shot attempts is not that important. If he plays in an NBA game, he's going to shoot 6 times or less once, right? So it's like, with sort of within context, but in context, Hansen's going to get the ball at the top of the key in an NBA game and get to run dribble handoffs, run pick and roll, run that delay action where his like guys cut off him. Like he's going to get to be a playmaker. That sort of playmaking hub type of thing is fairly common. The Blazers don't run it super well, but also like They haven't had great passers. Certainly, I think there is more passing to unlock with Klingon, but Hansen's already much more developed than he is in terms of just like passing touch and feel in that world. And the shot blocking seems to be something that will translate. I will say last year, Donovan Klingon led all of Summer League in blocks, was a monster, blocked everything. And when he got to the league, particularly the second half of the season, once he kind of found his comfort and figured out how to function a little better in the league after 45 games or whatever, he was a very, very, very good rim protector. It translated right away his rookie year. I think Hansen was already impressive, and these numbers suggest that the things that he did well are things that often translate to your game as a rookie. So his strengths will stay strong. And I if you know me, you know that I think the mark for young players, the most important thing you can do is make your strength strong. Do what you do best as often as you can, and then figure out how to sharpen your weaknesses. But being able to execute your strengths is incredibly important for young players. And I would say this Phillips story that I will link in the episode description for this episode makes kind of feel good about the direction that Hansen is headed, even if you already felt pretty good. There's some numbers behind it too. You know who doesn't feel pretty good? Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, Cam Thomas. Those dudes are in a stalemate with restricted free agency. And that got me thinking about the future of the Blazers and some restricted free agents they've got coming up. Let's talk about that to close the show. Join me in that third segment. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. This was rummaging around in my head. This was kind of banging around in my head as I was in the car for a very long time for work earlier this week. And I was thinking about I was listening to various NBA podcasts. When you're in the car for as long as I was, you can listen to all of them, baby. But there's a lot of discussion of Cam Thomas's restricted free agency and how he kind of finds himself in no man's land, and also like he was mean to Zach Lowe on the internet. He said the F word to Zach Lowe on the internet. So he got talked about on podcasts. Like he made the news. Congratulations, you did it. You say that you tell someone you tell the F word is friendship for my younger listeners. And if you call someone, you tell them friendship really loudly, everyone hears it. But Cam Thomas is a restricted free agent, just kind of sitting out there with a chance to go back, but no long-term contract. Jonathan Kuminga is basically in this weird stalemate with the Warriors where they don't want him to be back on the team necessarily, and they want him to be somewhere else, but they don't want to give him up for nothing, and no teams have cap space, so they can't sign him, so it has to be a sign and trade, and blah. It's like Jonathan Kuminga. He's also in the prison of restricted free agency. Josh Giddey, who had a breakout second half of the season, but there's some real question about whether the numbers like translate to impactful basketball, impactful high-level basketball, and like really how much money you want to commit to Josh Giddey, knowing that even with how well he played, do his flaws matter enough that like they would offset some of his strengths? Josh Giddey without a contract. And Quentin Grimes, who was reportedly asking for somewhere in the range of $30 million, I read earlier this summer. He is, unsurprisingly, he is without a contract. He was hooping last year when he ended up on the Sixers, right? Like the Mavericks let him go because the Dallas Mavericks don't really understand how talent works in the league. And Quentin Grimes got to a place where he got to just because of the nature of the Sixers roster, kind of got carte blanche to shoot a bunch, and he hooped. Like he was a really good scorer, and he looked like kind of that guy that the Knicks didn't want to trade for Donovan Mitchell way back when. And now these gentlemen who were good last year, Cam Thomas averaged like 24 a game. Jonathan Kuminga, I'm not a big fan of his game, but like he was pretty good in the playoffs when they really needed him and kind of like had to finally go back to him after putting him, benching him and getting him out of the rotation for an extended period of time. These players are good. These are NBA players, and they are without deals, and they are restricted free agents. How restricted free agency works is if you are either a first round pick or a second round pick who has played 3 or fewer years in the league, you can become a restricted free agent when you hit free agency coming off that contract. If your incumbent team extends a qualifying offer to you, which means that they can sign you to a contract, and because they have an option to match, and in all of those situations, they will also have bird rights, so they're able to sign you and go over the salary cap to retain you, right? So your incumbent team has all of the control restricted free agency is not free agency. You don't have a choice to go anywhere. That's why these dudes are stuck. There is no cap space to be spent on these gentlemen. They're not quite good enough to clear cap space to go get them, and their incumbent teams don't want to overpay. Now, we've seen some restricted free agents this year sign contracts that are a little bit smaller. I mentioned this. This is rummaging around in my brain. It's bumping around in my brain. And then Dan Devine of Yahoo Sports wrote about it and kind of broke down all of these situations. And Dan Devine mentioned 3 lower level guys who have reached agreements on restricted free agent deals. Santi Aldama, a 3 for $52 million contract. Davion Mitchell in Miami, 2 for $12. 2 for 12 though, that's easy to agree to. And Isaiah Jackson in Indiana with 3 years, $21 million. That's a little bit different because they lost Miles Turner. Do they do that if they don't lose Miles Turner? Does Isaiah Jackson get any money if their team is whole? If they're coming off the season they just did, he's coming off an Achilles injury, but I think his is unique. I think we can even cut him out. So of this sort of conversation because it's very specific to the sort of Indiana's situation. But so it's you're talking about Davion Mitchell, very little money, 2 for 12, and Santi Aldama, 3 for 52. But that isn't huge, massive starter money. That's a bunch of money. But in the modern NBA, starters are gonna make $20+ million a year, right? That is a starting center, starting bigs in the league make $20 million a year. It's normal. Other players at more premium positions on the wings make more than that, and stars obviously make coming into this season some of them $50 million a year. But this got me thinking about Shaedon Sharpe. Yes, indeed, this has a Blazers tie-in. He is not a restricted free agent this summer, but he is extension eligible. I have said a bunch of times I don't think the Blazers should extend him this summer, and I don't think the moves they've made by adding Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard have any impact on whether they'll be able to sign him to a contract. But I think the money won't get in the way for those extensions, but for that extension specifically, or for Tumani Kamara. But those contracts won't matter for that next summer, but they will matter for planning, right? Dame's under contract for this, 2 more after this one. Drew Holiday's under contract for 2 more after this one. At one point it might have been a no-brainer, right? Okay, we're committing to you. Let's give you a bunch of money and kind of figure it out. But I think in the new era of this sort of restrictive CBA, throwing giving someone immediately a $25 million contract and saying, we'll figure it out later. That's just what you do. You give them $25 to $40 million depending how effective they are and move on from there. I think we've seen those contracts come back to bite teams pretty badly. So I think for me, I would just not pay Shaedon Sharpe this summer. I would just say hey, we want you on the team. There's no reason that you're not going to be on the team. If you hit restricted free agency next summer, we're going to match whatever contract you get. So if you do ball out this summer and some other team wants to, back up the Brinks truck, we will happily hop in the passenger seat and help them back it up to your house, and then you'll still be on our team. There's no flight risk. Anyone telling you there's a flight risk with Shaedon Sharpe just does not understand the rules. And I'm hoping that this podcast can help them understand the rules. So. But what it could do, I don't think they should sign him to an extension this summer just because I don't think he's played at a consistent enough level where you'd want to give him high level starter money. You have this chance to give him a runway to play, real minutes this year and take a big leap and earn that contract. And you're not going to burn bridges, right? You can say hey, I bet you want to make $25 to $28 million a year. We're not there yet. We'd love to be there. Go ball out. We'll happily give it to you, right? Kind of simple as that. And you kind of communicate to Shaedon Sharpe and his people and go from there. But what I'm thinking about looking at these guys is the sort of Quentin Grimes, Cam Thomas, Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kumingas. Shaedon Sharpe could find himself in a similar vein where he is good enough to get paid a lot of money. 5 for 125, 4 for 110, 4 for 112, these big contracts, a big old deal. But there might be some apprehension from teams about giving him that level of contract. So then you get into these debating areas where good enough to get a big contract, but not good enough to get the biggest contract, and then you get caught up. Obviously, I think this is a unique situation because this particular summer, there was no teams with cap space other than Brooklyn. More teams can line up to have cap space next year. Right now, the only team that's projected again to have cap space is Brooklyn. Utah has a path to it, and some other teams could get there depending on what they do with some other free agents. But like, there's going to be sharp because of the nature of free agency. Teams don't typically clear a bunch of cap space to chase restricted free agents because there's no guarantee that you'll sign them. And the way that you lure them away from other teams is not offering them a fair contract, it's offering them an unfair contract. So you don't even have a ton of appeal as a restricted free agency. You're just not really a free agent. So I do think Sharp is perfectly talented enough to end up in this weird stalemate zone. Kuminga, Giddey, Grimes, and Thomas. I think this gets a little yucky with teams and players. I don't think this is a good space to be, but I do think we might end up here as more common than it has been in the past with teams, because teams are probably wisening up about not going too early with restricted free agents. Why, if you can't agree to a good deal early, why wait? Why rush? You can wait. And if you wait, you might have all of the leverage because these guys end up stuck in purgatory. That's, I think the best case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe is that he plays himself just into a world where the Blazers don't blink and offer him a fat contract, and it's and it is what it is, or another team offers him a fat contract and the Blazers match, and it is what it is. But I do think you could look at that quartet of Kuminga and Giddey and Grimes and Thomas and say, yeah, I can totally see Shaedon Sharpe in a similar. He's could be a very similar range of player, good, talented, but not quite talented enough, which things get messy. I think following how these get resolved, how Kuminga gets resolved, how Giddey gets resolved, how Grimes gets resolved, won't be an indicator of exactly what will happen to Shaedon Sharpe, but it'll be a good indicator of what could potentially be an outcome based on where the Blazers find themselves now. Knowing all this, the way that my podcast works, the Blazers are going to sign Shaedon Sharpe to a contract extension in couple days. Any educated guess I ever come up with on the show is immediately thwarted by the Blazers, who are committed to doing the thing that I don't think they should or will do. But it's been a really fun offseason, at least in terms of activity, so who am I to complain? Come back for tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show, barring any news, we're going to talk about the future roles of Scoot Henderson, Drew Holiday, and Damian Lillard, and how that trio, and we'll talk a little bit of Shaedon Sharpe too, what that trio means for the future of the Blazers, particularly just kind of looking at how they'll deal with the guards, point guard of the future, point guard of the present, and all of a sudden the existence of that pesky point guard from the past who just showed up this week. That's going to do it for today's program. Come back for that one tomorrow. That's what we do. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.